Don't you dare die on me, not tonight, not like this. A 19-year-old girl who owned nothing but a backpack and the clothes on her back was down on her knees in freezing rain, her bare hands pressed hard against a bleeding stranger, while the whole city that had ignored her for years slept warm behind locked doors. Everyone had walked past Lily Harper. Tonight she was the only one who stopped. Before we go on, if this story touches your heart, please subscribe, follow Lily, all the way to the very end, and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from so I can see just how far her story has traveled tonight. Lily Harper had learned a long time ago that she was invisible. Not invisible like a ghost. Invisible like a crack in the sidewalk. Something people stepped over without ever looking down. She was 19 years old, though most days she felt closer to 50. She had blonde hair that she cut herself with a pair of dull scissors she'd found in a donation bin, a jacket 2 sizes too big that she'd pulled off a fence behind a laundromat, and a backpack that held everything she owned in the world. A bottle of water, a spare pair of socks, a photograph so faded you could barely see the faces in it anymore, and a folding knife she kept for the nights when being invisible wasn't enough. She had one rule. Actually, she had 3 rules, but they were really all the same rule wearing different clothes. Never get involved, never be noticed, never become somebody else's problem. Those 3 rules had kept her alive on the streets of Portland for almost 4 years. 4 winters. 4 sets of frozen nights where she'd curled up in doorways and under stairwells, and once for a whole terrible week inside a dumpster because it was the only place the wind couldn't reach her. You don't help people, she used to whisper to herself when the cold got so bad she started talking just to hear a voice. You help people and they take everything you've got, then they leave. That's how it works. That's how it always works. She believed that the way other people believed in God, because life had taught her that lesson over and over until it was carved into her bones. She'd had a family once, a real one, a mother who sang off-key in the kitchen, a father who called her little bird and lifted her onto his shoulders so she could see over the crowd at the county fair. And then one night when she was 14, a phone call, a pair of police officers standing on the porch with their hats in their hands, and a world that came apart so fast she never even got to say goodbye. After that came the system. Foster homes, group homes, a social worker who forgot her name twice in the same meeting. Beds that were never really hers. Families that were never really families. And every single time she started to believe that maybe, just maybe, this place would be different. The door closed, the caseworker shrugged, and she was in the back of a car, again watching another house shrink in the rear window. By 16, she stopped believing. By 17, she stopped waiting for someone to come back for her. And by the time she turned 18 and the state decided she was old enough to stop being their problem, Lily Harper walked out the front door of the last group home she'd ever see, and she disappeared into the streets like a stone dropping into a river. Nobody noticed. Nobody ever noticed. That was the whole point. So when the storm rolled in that night, the worst one Portland had seen all winter, the kind that turned the streets into black glass and drove even the other homeless folks into whatever shelter they could find, Lily did what she always did. She found a place to be invisible. The underside of an old highway bridge on the edge of town, where the concrete kept off the worst of the rain and the sound of the cars overhead was almost like company. She'd slept there before. It wasn't warm, but it was dry, and on a night like this, dry was as close to a miracle as she was going to get. She pulled her knees up to her chest. She wrapped her arms around them. She pressed her back against the cold cement, and she waited for the shivering to stop, even though it never really did. Just get through tonight, she whispered. Her breath came out in a cloud. Just tonight, that's all. Just get through tonight and figure out tomorrow when it comes. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since the morning before when a woman outside a coffee shop had bought her a muffin without a word and then hurried away like she was embarrassed to have been seen doing it. Lily had said thank you. The woman hadn't turned around. That was fine. That was normal. People didn't stop. People didn't look. People had their own lives and their own troubles, and a girl freezing under a bridge wasn't anybody's business but her own. Don't get involved, she reminded herself, teeth chattering. Don't get noticed. Don't become somebody's problem. She closed her eyes, and that was when she heard it. At first, she thought it was thunder, a low, rolling growl coming up the highway through the rain. But thunder didn't get louder like that. Thunder didn't come closer. Lily opened her eyes. The growl sharpened into something she recognized, the deep, throaty roar of a big motorcycle engine, running hard and running fast, way too fast for a night like this. She could hear it fighting the storm, that engine the rider gunning it, and even from under the bridge, she felt her whole body tense up. That's too fast, she breathed. That's way, way too fast. She wasn't wrong. The roar climbed to a scream and then the scream broke. There was a sound she would never forget as long as she lived. A shriek of tires losing their grip on wet asphalt. A heavy, sickening skid. A crash of metal against metal that seemed to shake the very bridge she was hiding under. Then a long, grinding, tumbling noise like something enormous rolling end over end across the road. And then silence. The kind of silence that's worse than any scream. Lily didn't move. Every muscle in her body had turned to stone. Her heart was slamming against her ribs so hard she could feel it in her throat. Don't, she whispered to herself, don't you dare. Because she knew what her rules said. Never get involved, never be noticed, never become somebody else's problem. A crash on the highway was the very definition of somebody else's problem. If she went out there, if she got seen, if she got tangled up in whatever had just happened, the police would come. And the police never looked at a homeless girl kneeling next to a wreck and saw a helper. They saw a suspect. She knew that. She'd learned that lesson too. Stay put, she told herself, and her voice was shaking now, not just from the cold. Somebody else will come. Somebody with a phone, somebody with a car, somebody who's allowed to help. Not you, Lily. You stay put. She pressed herself harder against the concrete. She squeezed her eyes shut. And then cutting through the rain, cutting through her own frantic breathing, she heard the sound that shattered every rule she had ever made. A voice, a human voice, weak, broken, barely more than a moan, but unmistakably, undeniably alive. Help. Just that one word, dragged out of somebody's chest with what sounded like the last air they had. Somebody, please. Lily's eyes flew open, and something inside her, something that 4 years of cold and hunger and abandonment had almost but not quite managed to kill, woke up. No, she whispered, even as she was already moving. No, this is not your problem. This is not your... But her feet were already carrying her out from under the bridge and into the freezing rain. The storm hit her like a wall. Within seconds, she was soaked through the cold, biting straight down to the bone, her old jacket useless as tissue paper. She staggered up the muddy embankment toward the highway, slipping, catching herself on her hands, hauling herself up. Where are you? She called out, her voice thin against the wind. Hey, where are you? Keep talking. I can't see you. Keep talking. Yeah, here. And then she saw it. The motorcycle. It wasn't just any motorcycle. Even in the dark, even through the rain, Lily could tell it was something special. A huge, heavy custom machine, all chrome and black steel, the kind of bike that cost more than every place Lily had ever slept combined. It had gone down hard against the concrete highway barrier and rolled, and now it lay on its side like a fallen animal. And pinned beneath it, trapped between the crushing weight of that machine and the unforgiving barrier, was a person. A woman. Lily's breath caught. Oh God, she whispered. Oh God, okay. Okay, I'm here, I've got you, hold on. She scrambled the last few feet and dropped to her knees beside the woman. And that was when she got her first real look at her. She was older, 60 maybe. Silver hair soaked flat against her skull. A strong face gone gray with pain and shock. Deep lines around her eyes that spoke of a hard life fully lived. She was wearing a heavy leather vest soaked black with rain and something darker. And on the back of that vest, Lily saw the patch, the winged skull, the letters. Hell's Angels. Lily's whole body went cold in a way that had nothing to do with the rain. She knew that patch. Everybody in the city knew that patch. The Hell's Angels weren't just a motorcycle club. They were a legend. They were the people the news warned you about, the people the police watched the people, ordinary folks crossed the street to avoid. Dangerous, feared, the kind of people who, if you got tangled up in their business, could make you disappear. And here she was, a homeless girl with a folding knife in her backpack and no witnesses for a mile in any direction kneeling next to one of them. Every instinct she had screamed at her to run, run, run now. This is exactly the kind of trouble that ends people like you. Nobody will believe you were helping. Nobody ever believes people like you. Lily rocked back on her heels. Her hands were trembling. Her breath was ragged. I can't, she whispered. I can't do this. I can't, this isn't, I have to go. I have to. The woman's eyes fluttered open, and she looked right at Lily. Not through her, not past her, at her. The way almost nobody ever looked at Lily Harper. Please, the woman rasped, and her hand, bloody shaking, reached out and closed around Lily's wrist with a grip that was somehow still strong. Please don't leave me. And just like that, Lily stopped thinking about her rules. Okay, she heard herself say. Okay, I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. What's your name? Stay with me. Tell me your name. Victoria, the woman managed. Vicky. Okay, Vicky. Okay, I'm Lily. She was already moving, already scanning the wreck, her mind racing. You're gonna be fine, you hear me. You're gonna be fine. I have to get this off you, this bike, I have to get it off you. Victoria's eyes rolled toward the massive machine crushing her legs and her side. Too heavy, she breathed. Girl, you can't, it's too heavy. Get help. Just get help. There's no time to get help, Lily snapped, and her voice cracked because she knew it was true. She could see it now, the dark stains spreading across Victoria's side, black in the rain. Too much of it, way too much. You're bleeding bad. If I go looking for a phone, if I go looking for anybody, you'll be gone before I get back. So I'm getting this thing off you. I don't care how heavy it is. You'll hurt yourself. Then I'll hurt myself, Lily shouted, and something in her own voice surprised her. She hadn't shouted at anyone in years. She hadn't cared enough to. God, why does everybody always think I'm not leaving you here today? Now stop arguing with me and stay awake. She got her hands under the frame of the motorcycle and she pulled. Nothing. The bike didn't move an inch. It was like trying to lift a building. Her fingers slipped on the wet, slick metal, and she went down hard on the pavement, scraping both palms bloody. No, she gasped, scrambling back up. No, come on. She tried again, braced her feet, got her shoulder under it. This time threw every ounce of her weight into it, screamed with the effort until her throat burned. The bike shifted maybe an inch, and Victoria cried out in pain. Lily let go instantly, her heart pounding. I'm sorry, did I? It's on, the barrier, Victoria panted through gritted teeth. It's wedged. You'll never lift it straight up. You have to roll it off the wall side. Use leverage. Leverage. Lily's mind was moving fast now, faster than it had in years. The old survival instinct that had kept her alive on the streets kicking into overdrive. Leverage. Okay, I need something to pry with. I need a bar, a pipe, something long. She looked around wildly, and there, half buried in the mud at the edge of the highway, sticking out of a pile of old construction debris, somebody had dumped and never cleaned up a length of rusted metal pipe, maybe 4 feet long. There, she breathed. There you are. She dove for it, wrapped both hands around the cold, wet, rusted metal and wrenched it free of the mud. It came loose with a sucking sound, and she nearly fell over backward. Okay, Vicky. Okay, I've got a pipe. I'm going to wedge it under the bike, and I'm going to lift the whole thing off you. But I need you to help me. When it comes up, you have to pull yourself out. You have to. I can't do both. You understand? Victoria's eyes were starting to close. I'm so tired. No, Lily grabbed the woman's face in her muddy, bleeding hands, forced her to look at her. No, you don't get to be tired. You don't get to close your eyes. Look at me, Vicky. Look at me. Victoria's eyes snapped open. You are not dying under this bridge, Lily said, and her voice was fierce now, fierce in a way she didn't even recognize. Not tonight, not on my watch. I have spent 4 years learning how to survive things that should have killed me, and I am not about to kneel here and watch you quit. You hear me? You fight. When I lift this thing, you drag yourself out with everything you've got left. Promise me. For a long second, Victoria just stared at her. And then something changed in the old woman's face. Something that looked almost like recognition. Like she was seeing something in this soaked, starving, stubborn girl that she hadn't expected to find. I promise, she whispered. Good, Lily said. Good, here we go. She jammed the pipe under the frame of the motorcycle, found the barrier's edge, set it as a fulcrum, and threw her whole body down onto the other end. The pipe bent. The bike didn't move. Come on, Lily snarled through gritted teeth, hanging off the end of that pipe with every pound she had. Come on, come on. Her feet slipped in the mud. She caught herself. Threw her weight down again. Her muscles screamed. Her scraped palms shrieked against the rusted metal. Rain poured into her eyes, blinding her. Move, she screamed at the machine, at the storm, at the whole cruel world that had spent 4 years telling her she was worthless. Move you. And the motorcycle shifted, slowly, grindingly, a few inches, then a few more. The weight came up off Victoria's body. Now, Lily screamed. Now, Vicky, pull yourself out. Victoria pulled. The old woman's face twisted into a mask of agony, but she pulled, clawing at the wet pavement, with her hands dragging her broken body backward inch by agonizing inch, screaming with the pain of it until finally her legs came free of the wreck. And the second they did, Lily's strength gave out. She let go of the pipe. The motorcycle crashed back down onto the pavement with a sound like a bomb going off right where Victoria's body had been half a second before. Lily collapsed. She hit the wet ground on her hands and knees, chest heaving, arms shaking so hard she could barely hold herself up. We did it, she gasped. Oh my God, we did it. Vicky, we did it. But Victoria wasn't answering. Lily's head snapped up. The old woman was lying on her back in the rain, free of the bike now, but her eyes were fluttering. Her skin was gray, and that dark stain, that terrible spreading dark stain across her side, was getting bigger. No, Lily breathed. No, not now, not after all that. She scrambled to Victoria's side and pressed both hands against the wound. Blood welled up hot between her fingers, shocking against the cold of the rain. Okay, Lily said, and her voice was steady even though everything inside her was screaming. Okay, you're bleeding. I have to stop the bleeding. I need pressure. I need cloth. She looked down at herself, at her old jacket, the one thing standing between her and the freezing rain. The only warmth she had left in the entire world. She didn't hesitate. She ripped it off, tore the sleeve half away with her teeth, and her hands wadded the fabric into a thick pad and pressed it down hard against Victoria's side. Come on, she muttered, leaning all her weight into it. Come on, hold. Stop bleeding. Please, stop bleeding. Victoria's eyes drifted toward her. You're freezing, the old woman whispered. You gave me your coat. Girl, you're gonna freeze. I've been cold before, Lily said. I'll be cold again. You just worry about staying alive. That's your job right now. Stay alive. Everything else I've got covered. A sound came out of Victoria that might have been a laugh if it hadn't hurt so much. Who are you? Nobody, Lily said automatically. It was the answer she'd given her whole life. I'm nobody. Victoria's bloody hand rose up and gripped Lily's wrist again, that same fierce, impossible grip. You're not nobody, the old woman rasped. Not to me, not anymore. And something in Lily's chest cracked wide open, some door she'd nailed shut years ago. Some part of her that had gone quiet and cold the last time she watched a house disappear in a rear window. She felt tears burning in her eyes, hot against the freezing rain, and she didn't even try to stop them. Because in 4 years on the streets, in 4 years of being stepped over like a crack in the sidewalk, nobody had ever said that to her. You're not nobody. Not to me. Stay awake, Lily whispered, her voice breaking. Please, stay awake. Talk to me. Tell me about yourself, anything. Just keep talking. My club, Victoria breathed. Her words were coming slower now, thicker. They call me the Queen. 60 years old and they still call me Queen. Isn't that something? That's something, Lily agreed, pressing harder on the wound. A queen, well, guess that makes me your knight tonight, huh? Victoria smiled. It was faint and it was full of pain, but it was real. My knight, she echoed, in a torn-up jacket, kneeling in the rain. Best I could do on short notice, Lily said and let out a wet, shaking laugh. Now stop talking about my fashion sense and stay with me. You promised me you'd fight, remember? You promised. I remember. But her eyes were closing again. Vicky, no. Open your eyes, Vicky. And that was when Lily heard it, a new sound cutting through the storm, distant but growing. Sirens. Somebody somewhere in one of the cars that had passed on the highway above had made a call. Help was coming. Real help, ambulances and paramedics and people who actually knew what they were doing. For one blazing second, Lily felt something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. You hear that? She said, laughing and crying at the same time. You hear that, Vicky? They're coming. Help is coming, and you just have to hold on a little longer. Just a little longer, and they'll take care of you, and you'll be okay. You're going to be okay. And then the hope curdled into ice in her stomach. Because the sirens weren't just help. The sirens were the police. And the police, in her entire 19 years of experience, had never once looked at Lily Harper and seen a hero. The old fear rose up in her throat, choking her. She could see exactly how this would look. A homeless girl, a crashed motorcycle worth a fortune, a bleeding member of the most feared motorcycle club in the country, and her kneeling right in the middle of all of it with blood on her hands and a knife in her backpack. They would arrest her. They would blame her. They would say she caused the crash or she was robbing the woman or worse. Nobody would believe her. Nobody ever believed people like her. And even if they didn't arrest her, even if by some miracle they let her go, the Hells Angels would find out that their queen went down on Lily's watch. And what would people like that do to a nobody they blamed for hurting their leader? The fear won. It always won. "I'm sorry," Lily whispered, and now the tears were pouring down her face freely. "Vicky, I'm so sorry. I can't be here when they come. I can't. You don't understand. For people like me, help isn't help. It's a trap. It always ends the same way. So I have to go. But listen to me. You hold this jacket down. Okay, keep the pressure on. The paramedics are almost here. They'll save you. You're going to live. You're going to be okay." Victoria's eyes cracked open one last time. "Don't," the old woman breathed. "Don't run." "I have to," Lily said. "It's the only thing I know how to do." The sirens were close now. She could see the flash of red and blue lights painting the underside of the bridge coming up the on-ramp. Lily took Victoria's cold hand in both of hers and squeezed it one final time. "Thank you," she whispered. Victoria's brow furrowed weakly. "For what?" "For being the first person in 4 years who looked at me like I was real," Lily said. "I'll never forget it. As long as I live, I'll never forget you said that I wasn't nobody." And then before she could change her mind, before the lights could reach her, before anyone could see her face and remember it, Lily Harper let go of the Queen's hand, snatched up her backpack and ran. She ran down the muddy embankment. She ran into the dark. She ran the way she had run her whole life, from every good thing before it could turn bad, from every open door before it could slam shut, from every person before they could leave her first. Behind her, she heard the ambulance doors slam. She heard voices shouting. She heard the frantic, urgent language of people fighting to save a life. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Because if she looked back, she might stop. And if she stopped, she might hope. And Lily Harper had learned the hardest way there was that hope for someone like her was just heartbreak that hadn't happened yet. So she ran until her legs gave out, until the sirens faded behind her, until she found herself huddled in the doorway of a shuttered building on the far side of town, soaked to the skin, freezing jacketless, her hands still stained with a stranger's blood. And there in the dark alone, the way she had always been alone, Lily Harper pulled her knees up to her chest and told herself the thing she always told herself. "Don't get involved," she whispered, teeth chattering, tears freezing on her cheeks. "Don't get noticed. Don't become somebody's problem. You broke the rules tonight, Lily. You broke every single one of them. And now look at you, colder than ever, nothing to show for it. Serves you right." But even as she said it, even as she tried to bury what had happened, tried to file it away, with every other night she'd survived and forgotten, she knew something was different. Because a woman named Victoria Caldwell was still alive tonight. Because for the length of one storm, one crash, one impossible rescue, Lily Harper had mattered. And out there on that rain-soaked highway, as the paramedics lifted a 60-year-old biker queen onto a stretcher and asked her over and over what had happened, who had helped her, who had saved her life, Victoria Caldwell kept repeating through the fog of pain and blood loss the only two things she knew for certain. "A girl," she told them. "A girl saved me. Skinny thing, torn up jacket. She lifted the whole bike off me with a pipe and gave me her own coat. She had nothing. She had nothing, and she gave me everything." "Ma'am, do you know her name?" a paramedic asked, working fast, hooking up lines, calling out numbers. "Did she tell you her name?" And Victoria, right before the darkness took her under, smiled through the blood on her lips and gave them the one word that would in the days to come set an entire city in motion. The one word that a whole army of leather-clad, feared, misunderstood people would ride across the region to find. The one name that a girl who thought she was nobody had spoken into the storm, never knowing that it would change absolutely everything. "Lily," the Queen whispered. "Her name is Lily." And then the ambulance doors closed. 3 days. That was how long Lily Harper managed to convince herself that the night under the bridge had never happened. 3 days of telling herself the same lie she'd told herself 100 times before, that the rain had washed it all away, that the woman was somebody else's memory. Now that a girl like her didn't get to keep the good things she did any more than she got to keep anything else. She'd found a new place to sleep, an old parking garage on the industrial side of town, where the security guard was too lazy to check the upper levels, and she'd traded her last few dollars for a thin secondhand hoodie to replace the jacket she'd torn apart and pressed into a stranger's bleeding side. It's over, she told herself over and over until the words started to lose their shape. It happened, and now it's over, and you're never going to see any of those people again. That's a good thing. That's a good thing, Lily. You saved her, and you got out clean, and nobody knows your face. Count your blessings and move on. But she couldn't move on, because every time she closed her eyes, she felt that grip on her wrist. She heard that voice, thin and broken and absolutely certain. You're not nobody. Not to me. Not anymore. Stop it, she whispered to herself on the fourth night, curled up on the cold concrete of the parking garage, her stomach empty and her mind refusing to quiet. She didn't mean it. People say things when they're dying. She's probably already forgotten you exist. If she even lived. You don't even know if she lived. And that was the thought that gutted her every single time. She didn't know if Victoria had lived. She'd run before she found out. She'd chosen her own fear over the one thing she actually wanted to know, and now she would never know, and that was the price of her rules. Never get involved. Well, she'd gotten involved, hadn't she? And then she'd run away before she could even learn whether it had mattered. Serves you right, she muttered. Serves you right for breaking the rules. But the truth she couldn't say out loud, even alone in the dark, was that she wasn't scared of what the Hells Angels might do to her. She was scared of hoping that woman was alive. Because if she let herself hope and the woman had died, then Lily had failed at the one good thing she'd ever done. And she didn't think she could survive that. Not that she'd survived losing her family, survived the system, survived